are talking about the sci-fi thriller movie In the Shadow of the Moon, and this one is directed by Jim Mickle, and it's got a pretty good cast. You've got Boyd Holbrook, who you may know from the movie Logan, Cleopatra Coleman, Bokeem Woodbine, and Michael C. Hall, of course, recognisable from the TV show Dexter. And I guess this is you can compare this to a Terminator-esque kind of time travel film. I have to try and be as vague as I can on the plot here, but it's going to be a little difficult. But we'll give it a go. So it mainly focuses on Boyd Holbrook's character, who at the beginning of the movie, which takes place in the kind of the 80s, he is like a beat cop. He's a policeman, and he comes across this kind of strange serial killer who seems to be able to liquidate people's brains, and they all kind of like come out their kind of orifices and things like this. And this is the serial killer appears to be like a young woman, and they have three kind of like little holes in the back of their neck. And then it cuts to kind of 9 years later, and he has another run-in with this kind of woman, and now he's a kind of detective, and there's kind of like things kind of start to happen, maybe things start to fall in place, and it appears this woman is appearing looking exactly the same every kind of 9 years, killing certain people for a very specific reason that may have to do with a potential future event. And Boyd Holbrook becomes obsessed with basically trying to capture the woman to the kind of the degradation of his own kind of personal life, his relationship with his daughter, his partner, his brother-in-law, played by Michael C. Hall. And obviously when it's all kind of said and done, science fiction, time travel, that sort of thing, don't want to go too much further into it other than that. So let's discuss, and let's talk about what works, first of all, with this movie. The production value of this film is pretty high, I've got to say. It's not necessarily a flashy film in regards to kind of special effects and things, but it is extremely proficiently kind of well shot with a decent kind of budget behind it, and therefore looks like a professional kind of well-made film with good cinematography, good stunt choreography, quite good chase sequences that have lots of different kind of sets, lots of extras, things like that. I think the acting is great. I think Boyd Holbrook, this is one of his best movies actually, because he goes through such a kind of transformation as a character, because essentially it kind of picks up in over kind of different 9-year periods, and each kind of period of time his character is significantly different from another period of time. Again, trying not to give two things away. So I think Boyd Holbrook does an excellent job here of a very multifaceted character whose kind of worldview is very different each time we kind of meet him. But everyone else does a great job, I think, as well. And I really liked, it's weird to see Michael C. Hall as a policeman rather than the serial killer, but again, everyone does a kind of a particularly good job here. The actual concept is very interesting, and the movie gives you a kind of an idea what's kind of happening, but without kind of spelling out everything for you in regards to until we get to the end. But I think it's kind of an intriguing premise, and I like it kind of the Terminator. I do feel it has there's an element there of that kind of movie. Certainly the first film, maybe without the kind of the robotics side of things. But again, I don't want to say any more than that. But there certainly is elements of things like that, really, more than any other kind of time travel movie. But I think it's a decent budget on this one, and kind of the effects, what we see, all look very good. Maybe what doesn't work for me, I feel, as with a lot of time travel movies, there are flaws in the logic. But I feel in this one in particular, and again, I don't want to kind of point out particular plot holes for fear of spoiling the film, but the thing with kind of like inevitability, paradoxes, things like that, and it's a danger with any type of time travel film. I just think you can't escape the fact that this doesn't kind of quite make sense if you think too much about it, and if certain things would have happened, certain other things would or wouldn't happen. But yeah, I feel this movie, more so than some others, it makes you kind of think, hang on a second, it doesn't kind of make sense in the kind of the rules set out by this film. But as I said, that's a critique that I feel is levelled at a lot, if not all, time travel movies. Other than that, I would say this movie maybe is a tad on the long side. Like I said, the movie is split up into kind of 9-year chunks of time. And I gotta say, I got a feeling they would have benefited maybe from having one of these chunks removed, because the movie runs just shy of 2 hours, and yeah, I would have liked it maybe to have been 15 to 20 minutes shorter, because at a point I'm thinking, okay, it's dragging a little bit now, and I feel the period which is the kind of maybe that drags the most is actually the very last one. This is when we get Boyd Holbrook at his kind of most dishevelled. But I feel the last act, so to speak, the last kind of portion is the weakest. There's a revelation which I think is quite cheap. I gotta be honest. I wasn't so keen on that particular one, but yeah, it's certainly a pretty decent movie. It's enjoyable, and I think Boyd Holbrook really does a lot of the heavy lifting for this film. I actually thought it was quite fun, but a little bit tiresome, and just don't think too much about it. The movie does kind of come across as quite a smart film, but I think it's just inevitable, which is the weird thing about this movie, because that's kind of one of the points of it. But it is inevitable that with time travel films there is a problem here, where, you know, when we think about it with our kind of our brains, thinking that doesn't quite make sense. But it's worth a watch. I will give this one a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.